I have seen the first 3 episodes of Marvel's What If, and here are my first thoughts. Now, the review embargo lifts August 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the day before the first episode drops. So this video is going to be business focused, like the one I first did for Black Widow. And I'm so glad that so many of you enjoyed that and asked me to do more videos like that. So here's this video. Now, like the comics they are based on, each episode of Marvel's What If asks the question, what if this happened instead of that? Well, here's a business what if for you. What if Marvel did an animated show to quickly set up a bunch of multiverse characters right after Sylvie let the multiverse loose, so that those characters could come to life in live action for Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness. And the audience, now already introduced to those characters in said animated show, would therefore go wild when they saw them burst onto the screen again in live action. Well, that's exactly what Marvel is doing, and it's freaking brilliant. So that's a fun game for you to play while you watch What If episodes. Who could show up in live action? There are some obvious choices, and rumors are already swirling. Wink, wink. That's all I'll say. I don't want to outrightly ruin it for you. And once you see these characters in action, you will go crazy when you see them in live action. And the operative word here is action, because the action in this show is incredible. Yeah, so as we've been discussing, what's helped adult animation shows really stand out with Western audiences, they've been popular with Eastern audiences for decades, is incredible action sequences that rival live action entertainment, from Castlevania to Invincible to even back to the good old days of Avatar, and soon to be revisited, of course, with the formation of Avatar Studios. But let me just say, I have never seen Captain America move like Captain Carter does on this show. It is jaw-dropping. I mean, I can't get over how incredible it was. It was just everything I would ever want and didn't even know I wanted. It was incredible. And yes, Marvel never saw a space of the market they didn't want. So after dominating movies and then streaming, it's pretty clear that they've now set their sights on animation. Marvel Studios Executive Vice President of Production, Victoria Alonso, has even recently revealed that Marvel is in fact launching an in-house animation mini-studio so it can pump out animated content like it does live action. Careful, Marvel! You don't want to spread your audience too thin. Pent-up demand exploding with each theatrical release proved to be very effective. But, we just saw with Black Widow and Loki that the audience perhaps does have a breaking point where it gets spread out more than they had anticipated. I don't care, though. I love all this stuff. From a business perspective, though, what will be the rate of return? I think it doesn't matter so much for Disney Plus because they just want to keep you subscribed and people talking about it. But being that Marvel is a division of Disney, I think when we first heard about them doing an animated Marvel show, we thought it would be cutesy animated shorts. I mean, all the Disney Plus animated shorts to date from other divisions have been very not consequential. Right? Like think about the Simpsons shorts and the Disney shorts. They're little pieces of fluff. But that's not the case here. There ain't no fluff here. This is lean and mean. Now, there isn't blood splattered everywhere like Invincible, literally in Invincible. But in the first 3 episodes of What If, the death count is shockingly high. Wow! Other adult elements, don't worry, there's no spoilers in this video. And there's stuff I could spoil. Oh, we'll talk about that in a moment. But again, I'm not going to spoil it. Now, other adult elements include a sexy film noir version of Nebula, loved it so much, she's already been revealed, and a known villain who, with the help of animation, shows off a brand new bulging six-pack as he loses his shirt. I was like, that's crazy that you did that. Now, the animation style, yes, while at first jarring, which is how we all felt when we saw the first look and, the trailer since, when you actually watch an episode, it makes you feel like you're watching live action. It really does blur the line between the two. And the illusion is only shattered, I would say, by the MCU actors who decided not to show up. I can't believe they didn't show up. For instance, I was shocked that Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, and Brie Larson didn't voice their characters. Now, sure, Scarlett Johansson just sued Disney, but this voice work was done a long time ago, as evidenced by Chadwick Boseman's powerful final performance as T'Challa. Again, we'll talk about that more when I actually can review the show. Other big names do show up, though. It makes a difference, and it's appreciated. I think anyone who didn't show up to voice their characters here should be ashamed, because, do it for the fans. Like, there's no good reason for you not to do voice work for an animated show. You should do it, because again, as I said, it makes a really big difference. I would say that what's most surprising about What If is that it's not an artsy animated side project, but another important chapter in the MCU saga, which is not just equally competitive with the live action content, but I would say perhaps even more so. It might just be that it's the newest thing, but I don't know. There's more here. It's very, very good. That's because just like these other adult animated genre shows that I mentioned, the storytelling, locations, and action can all be turned up to an 11 because it's less expensive than doing it in live action. Like, wow! On that note, What If is delivering 10 action-packed episodes running August 11th to October 13th. And I suspect that every single one of them will trend, because I think they have very big and impressive reveals. I didn't think the show was going to be as big as the other Marvel Disney Plus shows, but as I just said, I think it could be even bigger. And one of the reasons is that, speaking of reveals, because these are multiverse stories and not the main MCU story, the writers can make bold moves without having to worry about repercussions. They can do things that you normally would never be able to do in a franchise that, brings in so much money for the parent company. And they make bold moves, which is an absolute delight. That's one of the reasons that these multiverse and Elseworld stories are so popular in comics, because you can do this, and it's so cool to see them do it in animation, in a different medium. It's very cool, very comics faithful. We'll talk about that also in just a moment. Now, I have to say, I would try to watch Marvel's What If when it drops, or at least stay off social media until you can watch. And we thought we were getting a break from 3 a.m. drops. Ha! And 10 weeks of 3 a.m. drops. That is a huge ask. That's a huge ask. I don't know if you can get up at 3 a.m. for 10 weeks in a row on Wednesday, but just make sure you watch it as soon as you do get up before logging onto social media, because it's going to be trending. For sure. Episode 3 isn't as strong as episodes 1 and 2. Those are mind-blowing. But at that point, the bar of the show is raised so high, so it's not totally fair to episode 3, which tries to do something a little bit different than the first 2 episodes, and I would say that episode 3 still delivers. Speaking of raising the bar, it seems that each Marvel Disney Plus show is doing just that. And as I said, I think that Marvel's What If could end up being their biggest yet, thanks to how aggressive it is, its excellent execution, how close it is to live action, but in some ways even better, and also how digestible it is. Oh, it's a yummy snack. Each episode is just about 30 minutes, but so jam-packed with story that they feel longer. And which is often the case with animation overall, extremely rewatchable. Especially at the first 2 episodes, I was like, I would like a whole animated movie based on this, please. It was really, really good. It's also pretty clear that this and Loki are required viewing for Doctor Strange too. You're not going to be able to experience it as you should if you don't watch these shows. Finally, though, it is very interesting as a comic book fan to see the MCU getting to be more like, reading comics, which I must say, while I and many of us enjoy it, is not a particularly popular pastime. The Multiverse, or Elseworld stories as they're called for DC, are a basic part of comic books. And perhaps, I think, though, too much to ask of mainstream audiences. After all, we're used to picking up a stack of comic books each week and keeping track of multiple versions of the same character, sometimes in the same day. Sometimes you'll have a comic that has, the same character, different versions, different time in their life, and we can compartmentalize. We're used to it. We've been trained to do that. But mainstream audiences have not been trained to do that. As I've told you before, after Black Widow, I went to see it with my family, and my father was like, how'd she die? I didn't see her die. And I was like, she died in Avengers Endgame. And my dad had totally forgotten about that and didn't even, it's just hard to keep track of all that if you're a casual viewer. And I know that the core fandom is really intense. We're really intense. But the reason Marvel movies make so much money is not only because of the repeat viewing from that target fandom, that core fandom, but because of the casual viewer who enjoys just being in the Marvel world. And to tell you the truth, my family enjoyed Black Widow. They enjoyed it quite a bit, even though they're not hardcore fans. So I think that as both the MCU and the DCEU introduce alternate versions of characters that are coexisting, and their comic book content expands exponentially thanks to streaming. Both Marvel and DC are producing a copious amount of shows in addition to the movies that they're also not letting up on. Well, this could just be too confusing and too much work for the casual viewer. We'll see what happens, but this comic book fan is delighted. As I said, the first Avengers I thought perfectly captured what it was like to read a comic, and now as I switched, from watching Invincible to watching Castlevania to watching all these different Marvel shows, and then you throw in some DC stuff as well. DC is only ramping up now. It really does feel like the experience of reading a stack of comics, which is good because comic books, my stack gets smaller and smaller as the actual comics lose more and more control of the medium, of the stories, because Hollywood's taken it over. Life's tough. But again, I'm having a good time. All right, so anyway, what do you think? My non-spoiler review of What If will go up on August 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, that'll be non-spoiler. And then I'll be breaking down each episode in detail. We will go over every one of Peggy's amazing action poses the day that the episodes drop. All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.